Good afternoon, Board of Health members. This is Troy, your host. We are live and recording.
Red light.
Yep, I'm on now. Attorney certification of agenda. Mr. Pratt.
Good afternoon, Board of Health members. This is Chris Pratt with the County Attorney's Office. All the items on your agenda today have been reviewed by our office and meet legal approval.
Thank you. Do we have any member disclosures for any item on this agenda?
I have none.
I have none.
No, sir. All right, and I have none as well. Has everybody reviewed the meeting minutes from our last regular meeting? Does anybody have any additions or any changes or deletions?
I'm happy to make a motion.
Please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting from the Douglas County Board of Health, February 10th, 2022 at 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Wonderful. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay, let's move on to this is an exciting meeting. This is an exciting meeting because we have a new director of the Public Health Department who has been working now for a month with us. Is it a month? About a half a month. Well, time flies. We've been working for a couple of weeks with us now. Michael Hill, the hiring of Michael is the result of a thorough nationwide search to try and find the best possible public health director that we could, and we were lucky because we did find the best possible public health director that we could. Believe it or not, we received resumes from Colorado, but we also received resumes from the East Coast, from the West Coast, and it was a very competitive process. And throughout that competitive process, there was really no doubt that Michael was the individual who was best suited for the job. He, by way of background, by way of temperament, and by way, frankly, a philosophical approach to delivering public health services to the residents of Douglas County, there was no question that he was the right person to do it. He was certainly qualified. He comes from San Luis Obispo, where he was the public health director there. He had served in similar positions in Illinois. He is as degreed as you would expect a public health director to be, and you would like a public health director to be. So I'm really grateful, excited, and happy that we have you with us, and I know the residents of Douglas County feel the same way. And I will turn it over to my colleagues if they have anything they want to add to the introduction that I just gave.
So I'd be happy to add that while we were going through the process, I had several community members who met with Mr. Hill, and he got grilled for about 3 hours, and he did a really nice job. I think what I really appreciated about him is that he listened to what people had to say, and he answered their question directly. And if he didn't have the answer because they gave him some information about Denver or Colorado, he said, I certainly will look into that as soon as I get there. And so everybody had a really good feeling about his ability to listen and his expertise, having been in the field for more than 30 years. And I am really thrilled that we have made this decision to have our own Douglas County Health Department, and that Michael Hill is the person who's going to do a wonderful job bringing this to be a tailor-made department that really suits and serves the needs of our citizens. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you. With that, we have a new item on the agenda that excites me greatly, which is the Executive Director update. So, take it away, Mr. Hill.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the nice words before. So I provided a written executive director's update, and my plan is just to kind of synopsize that verbally and respond to any questions you have rather than trying to read to you a document that you've already read. So basically what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks is going to a lot of meetings with a lot of people, both a lot of county staff, the Tri-County staff, Cdphe staff, others that I can't even remember where they're from, but I've been to a lot of meetings. I've learned that the county staff has made just incredible progress as far as planning for the deployment of this new health department. I mean, between the time I was here to be interviewed and now, they've accomplished a lot. I mean, it's made my job that much more simple, and I've said it several times in several meetings, but I sincerely thank the county staff for everything they've done. They're just outstanding. I've toured some leased space that we're going to take on right next door to where Tri-County is so that we have a place for the health department to have a physical existence, and facilities is working on that right now to make it ready for us to move into. The previous tenant had turned off the electricity, so it was a little cold and dark when we went to see it, but that's already changed. And we've made some good progress with Tri-County as far as, how we'll work together to transition services and even transition use of the space over there. So they said rather than us building a secure vital records office, if we get ready to do vital records, we could just go use their existing space. So it's going to be a much smoother transition, I think, than I would have forecast. And I'm going to continue with lots of meetings and working, most importantly, to make sure that the state funding that goes to Tri-County on our behalf comes to us on our behalf starting July 1. And the state seems to be on board with that, so that's going well. We'll need to start planning some work sessions, so later agenda item, I'm going to ask you all about your calendars and times to come together to start planning what exactly we're going to do in this health department, because there are mandated services by law we have to do, and there are a lot of other things that Tri-County does that we may or may not want to do depending on the feeling of the Board of Health and the input from the community that you've gathered over time. I'm going to start working with the HR director to hire people so that right now there are 3 of us are the staff of this health department, and I'm going to keep it as small as I can, but 3 is too small. So we'll be starting to hire, and that's, excitingly, I think we should be ready to take on vital records as soon as May 1st. And we have a plan coming up to you next month that'll show the dates that we target for having the rest of the services on board. So that's enough of my babbling for right now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. And in particular, I think the work sessions are going to be very important because you're right. There's things that we have to do then. There are things that are unique to Douglas County that we want to focus on. And I think in the wisdom of the commissioners when setting up a Douglas County Public Health Department was the recognition that we have unique needs in Douglas County. It certainly wasn't a sort of condemnation of Tri-County Health, quite frankly. It was the recognition that we have things here that we need to do differently, that we would do uniquely for Douglas County that are different than Adams and Arapahoe. And the idea that we had to compete for services for our constituents was one that I think was not optimal for us. I'm a big believer in regionalization of landfills, regionalization of wastewater treatment plants, but I think regionalization of public health is different than that because you're dealing with unique demographics. So sort of diving into, what is unique about Douglas County, what services do we want to have delivered, I think is important, and I am excited to do that and excited to work with you. So moving to the next item then, let's move to the action items then. The State of Colorado Master Task Order contract, which I think is a rather important piece of our agenda. So I'll turn it over to you to talk about that, or Chris.
Thank you, Board of Health members. Hopefully you've had a chance to review and look at the Master Task Order from the state. This is a document that the state has asked that our local public health agency sign. They sign these with all local public health agencies. It is kind of a boilerplate of terms and conditions that they would like to apply to task orders that will be specific to things that we may be entering into with the state in the future for various public health services and funding that we may be able to get from the state. So this document doesn't obligate us to any of those future task orders, but it simply lays the groundwork so that future task orders don't have to have this boilerplate language included in them.
So it's a framework for everything. No matter what we want to do in the future, this serves as the framework for us moving forward. It doesn't
This is how
commit
the
us to
state
anything.
will interact with our Board of Health going forward with these agreements.
Okay.
I am prepared to answer any questions you may have about it. If not, there is a request that you authorize the president, make a motion to authorize the president and/or the public health director, executive director, to sign this agreement on behalf of the Douglas County Health Department.
Are there any questions from any board members? Well, then, I will, first I'm remiss in not having done this up front. Ms. Muramoto was going to be with us tonight, but there's a family emergency that really arose at the last minute that required her to leave. And, you know, Mr. Bracken also was unavailable. So I'm hopeful that we can have Ms. Muramoto back and that her family emergency is resolved positively. But I just, for the record, wanted to note that. So moving on to the motion, I would make a motion. I think I'd make the motion authorizing the public health director to sign the master task order on behalf of the county health department, not the Board of Health. Is it the Board of Health or
The Douglas County Health Department.
on behalf of the Douglas County Health Department, and would seek a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. So let's see if there's any public comment on this item. We have a motion and a second, but is there any public comment on the master task order?
This is Troy. I have no online comment.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. I would, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. Mr. Hill, provide an update on Cdphe ARPA local support funding.
Okay, I don't have a lot of detail other than the memo that was included in your packet. Basically, the county is receiving ARPA money, some of which can be used toward the purpose of setting up this new health department. And we've shown dollar amounts here for services in 2021 that we're going to code to that funding, and then what we plan to charge in 2022 to the funding. So again, unless there are any questions, I don't think we need a motion on this, but it's just an informational item.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Okay. We can move on with that one, from that one, to the media protocols.
Okay, for this one, there are protocols in the county for how the county manager responds to the media or the county responds to the media on behalf of the county commissioners. So we need something similar to start coming into place for the Board of Health. So when there's an outreach to the county communication director for media on behalf of the Board of Health or the health department, historically it's been the board president who has been answering those. We just want to authorize me to be able to speak to the media on behalf of the health department and the Board of Health. For things that are happening since I arrived here, I still think the board president needs to answer for things that transpired before I got here.
So, and I think, and there was something included in our board packet on this, but maybe we should talk about it a little bit. So I think I think yes, that you're the correct person to be the sort of the first responder to media calls. understanding that they would be triaged and, you would run them up to me, depending upon what the issue is that's been discussed. And then, of course, I would have the obligation, as I have been doing, to talk to other board members about how we were going to respond. I think that's the cleanest way to do it. And certainly on previous items, I would continue to, you may field the calls, but I would continue to be the one that would speak on behalf of the board on some of those earlier items. So I don't know if anybody has any comment on this or any questions about it. I think I think my experience is the important part of this is, one, to have a process in place, and two, to make sure that there are sort of a policy of no surprises for other board members, and in particular the commissioners. I want to make sure that y'all are never surprised by something that pops up. So, for, I think, rather routine issues, Mr. Hill can handle those. For issues that maybe more than routine, he would talk to me, then of course I would talk to all of you and make sure that everybody's comfortable with however we're going to respond. Is that Commissioner Teal?
Thank you, Mr. President. My thoughts on this are kind of shaded by a discussion that we were having on the Board of County Commissioners, and it was a point made by my colleague, Commissioner Thomas, of I think we've, put a lot of effort into the composition of this board up until now. We put a lot of thought into your selection, Mr. President, as the president of this board, and obviously the experience in public health that you bring to this board. The only thing is we're at a snapshot in time. Obviously, we are following requirements to rotate membership over time through the board, and so right now I think we all feel like even before Director Hill's arrival, we were doing a pretty conscientious job to get us to this point. But moving forward into the future, as conscientious as we will remain, our membership will change. And so, and indeed, who is the president of the board will change, because eventually you're going to get tired of all this extra free work that we keep foisting upon you. And so, no, I think this is a good way to go. Obviously, it's really tough to ask Director Hill to speak for actions that we have taken up until this point without the benefit of his extensive experience. But moving forward, at the very least, I think Mr. Hill needs to be incorporated in all media response moving forward. And then, I don't know, Mike, how long you're planning on continuing to live or continuing to be employed as a professional in your profession, but eventually, I'm sure moving through time, we will do our best to make sure we have competent leadership of our public health department. And so I think this is a good media protocol to start with. And at the very least, test drive. It looks good to me. I think it's sound in reasoning. And of course, as things change, based upon the advice from Director Hill, based upon the advice from members of the board, this is something we can modify, but I really think this is a really great starting place.
Thank you. Any other comments?
If I could just add that I think it's always good to have a policy in place, because sometimes we get calls from the media wanting immediate response. And I think it's good to always slow down and make sure that we have the right people making the comments that address the question. So I think having this policy is a good idea.
And I would second that, because we absolutely have to have our director. Basically, we hired him to be in charge, and we have to allow him to run some things. And so, yes, I think he should be incorporated in all of those media discussions.
Well, we have unanimity on this point. And so do you feel you have the direction you need, Michael?
Yes, I just wanted it on the record that I'm authorized to speak to the media, because I could assume that, but better to ask permission than assume.
It is on the record, and it is in writing.
Did you want to take a vote?
Oh, I don't think we anticipated voting on it, but we certainly could. I don't know. Mr. Pratt, you have advice on whether we should adopt this by motion or not?
I certainly think it wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Just give that on the record.
Okay,
to the director.
let's do that. But no, thank you. Let's do that. I'll seek a motion approving the media protocols.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Wonderful. We have media protocols in place. And Mr. Hill, I'll now turn it over to you for future Board of Health work sessions.
Yes, so I would like to just get something routine in your calendars for a monthly work session. Probably set them up for maybe the next 4 or 5 months. I don't anticipate we'll need all of those, but we need to first, I think, have a work session to look at the community health assessment, the public health improvement plan, the task force, all of this input that the community's had into what public health services they want, and compare that with a menu of services offered by Tri-County and come up with a target for what services do we want to provide moving forward. We need to get that established so that we're not out there getting ready to establish the service that the Board of Health doesn't want us to serve, and that we are aware of everything that you do want us to provide. So I think that's the first one that's most important. Then as you know, we have this brief media policy, but we need another one on just a set of policies. We're going to have to put together policies and procedures for this department to guide not just me, but the rest of my staff, which will be growing, as I mentioned earlier. So I really want to see if we can come up with a routine monthly meeting time to make that happen.
And are you seeking from us, let's talk about, want to talk about meeting times right now?
Sure, or however you'd like to handle it. I just wanted to get the question out there on the floor.
Well, let's start looking at our calendar. I mean, if we can pick, I assume what you'd like to do is you're asking us for a day a month, and we may not use that day every month, but if we get it on the calendar, then we'll know that it's available and people are available.
Could I please clarify?
Oh, yes, doctor.
If we are doing the meetings, are we planning these during normal working hours or evenings? I am free every normal working hour, between 8 to 5. But 1/3 of the time, I work an evening shift from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. And so if it's going, and that's irregular, so I would have to go into the agenda staffing from my group, 35 people, and make the arrangements. But normal, as far as I'm concerned, if it's during normal daylight working hours, I will be there.
So Wednesdays and Thursday and Friday afternoons are usually my best availability. That's usually where I do not have a regularly scheduled either commissioners' business, regularly scheduled operations, or actually those are nice holes in my regional board responsibilities that Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Layden and I all share. So I start the first and the third Wednesday. I start looking at running into cutoff times around 4 o'clock, though, just because Denver Regional Council of Governments meet on the first and third Wednesdays. Otherwise, yeah, if you're available.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, Dr. Fielding, that would be great. And so, generally speaking, afternoons, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays are my best times.
Okay.
So our regular Board of Health meetings are the second Thursday. What if we looked at the fourth Thursday or Friday in the afternoon?
Sure.
Yeah.
Friday afternoons would actually work well for me as well.
Friday afternoons are currently, nobody has bothered to book those for me yet on my calendar, so that works perfectly for my schedule.
So
Okay.
why don't we say, is there a particular, how long do you anticipate these meetings going? What's the?
I'm thinking the first one might take a couple of hours just because it's a big question, but normally I would not try to tie up more than an hour of your time.
So I would almost suggest if we could do it later in the afternoon, sort of like at 4 o'clock. And that way we're hitting, for a work schedule, it works a little bit better, and then we're hitting the end of the day. It makes it a little less awkward, so.
Doctor's
I may
evening
have to
schedule.
leave, though, depending on where it is, or I might have to meet online if it's going to run much more than about 5:30 to 5:45, because I do have to get in front of a teleradiology station.
Okay. Let's,
So maybe the first one, you want it to be a little earlier.
Yeah.
After that, 4 o'clock. If it's an hour, it's no problem.
let's do the first at 3, let's move it to 4 then, and then we can see how it works, and quite frankly, we can be flexible. If it doesn't work, we can move it to something else.
Yeah, I just think it would be, I can always be there via, remote, but I think it's a little awkward, and for the first one, I think you'd want to see my smiling face.
Yes, well, for all of them.
The only thing that I would ask the director to seek consultation from our legal staff is in Colorado, based on open meetings laws, the difference between what is considered a work session and the prohibition about decisions being made, as well as the legal notice required versus our actual Board of Health meetings. And, that's probably something that a quick conversation with Chris can build the guidelines around. And I only say that, Director Hill, because, you just came to us from California, and I don't know if those rules are looser or more stringent, but probably something to equate yourself with, sir, as you plan these out for us.
They're actually more stringent, Commissioner, but yeah, I envision these as discussions from which I will come up with recommendations based on your discussions to take action on at the next regular Board of Health meeting. Not to make decisions, but just for me to hear and understand what you are all thinking.
So to be clear, we are the fourth Friday, first one at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock thereafter, starting April? Is that when you're
Yes.
thinking, or you want to do it March? April? Okay,
Yeah, I might not have everything I need to present to you by the March.
okay. Let's do it April. I'm good with April.
Mr. President, if I may ask, since we're on the subject of scheduling and meetings, there had been discussion previously about this body moving its meetings to a 5 o'clock time slot, and I just wanted
Yes.
to verify that was still the case going
Yes.
forward, starting in March,
Yeah,
or April. sorry.
April, yes. Yep.
Yes. I may be remote, but I'll be there.
Okay, that is perfect. Okay. All right, you now have what you need, I hope. Okay. Okay, that completes the agenda. Let's go to citizen comments. Do we have any comments? Please. And name and town in which you live, please.
I'm Bob Marshall from Highland Ranch, Colorado, and I don't want to be nasty, but I have some real concerns about the competency and integrity over the last 6 months of this board. In less than 6 months, you lost 2 lawsuits, 2, a preliminary injunction and a temporary restraining order. Both are extremely difficult to get, but you lost in federal court and state court. So I'm really concerned about the lack of humility by this board, because your only one official act that you've done in that public health order was the subject of both those lawsuits, and yet you still stand by it. And after this last preliminary injunction that was issued, the president of the Board of Health went out and was in the paper saying, well, any business could have a mask mandate. Well, that's not true, because the exception swallowed the rule. So are we saying that the judge is an idiot? No. He's absolutely right. But this board doesn't recognize that. The board didn't recognize what the federal district court judge said. The same federal district court judge that has already pinged you, not only for the $100,000 that you gave to the president of the Board of Health's prior law firm colleagues, but also requiring you now to pay all the plaintiff's fees because you completely lost. But no one wants to look at what the problems or issues are. And if you read this last order from the court, they were very clear. He looked at it and said, this is not a real health board. It's not a true health department under Colorado law. You're just playing at being a health department. And it's causing problems for the citizens. Your Jogan Health people, many people have told me the name of it now is Jogan Health. You have 5 members that you all picked solely for this mask issue and have a lot of groupthink going on, and I really think that's inappropriate. I brought forward the issues I had with the deception on the amount of costs that this Board of Health was going to cost because the Board of County Commissioners are the ones who created it. But again, I made it known right when this started that it was going to be at least $1 million more, at least, than we pay to Tri-County Health Department. We're already 1.4 million over, and then we find out PIRA is suing all 3 counties for $50 million and wants the proportionate share from Douglas County. And you all knew that and didn't disclose it to the citizens. That's like $17 million, 6.5, 7 times what we pay Tri-County Health Department every year. So again, somebody needs to do better because really the integrity and competency is very low right now. So thank you.
Any other public comment? Is there anybody online?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no online comment.
Great. Well, thank you. I would then seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thanks. Great meeting, y'all.